I've been on 186 dates in the past year, all with different guys. None of them have met me. I only go for married guys. Easy enough. I just write in my bio, "I'm better than your wife," and wait for someone to ask me to prove it. There's something thrilling about matching with an ugly guy, knowing that the girl I've chosen to pose as is way out of my league. Watching as he acts cocky anyway. I'll lay in bed and giggle like a teenage girl while I make him think that his pickup lines are working. Knock knock. Who's there? What win? What win who? Date this week, me and you. OMG, that was so cute. We'll set up a date at a bar. I'll let him feel like he's picking where we go, but I'll drop hints to get what I want. If I'm feeling a country bar, I'll say I like places that play Willie Nelson, where I can dance if I feel like it, or people watch if I don't. They'll tell me they know a spot, like it's Speakeasy and not the first place that came up on Google when they searched country bar. I'll get there 30 minutes or so early, and when he walks in, I'll be sitting there with a drink, an espresso martini if it's been a long day, or a Cosmo if it feels like a party kind of night. The guy will take a seat, usually already buzzed. It takes a lot of courage to go out with a fake ID wielding 18-year-old when you're 45 and your wife's waiting at home, and I'll be just a couple of seats away from him. If I'm feeling especially silly, I'll text him to buy me a drink, whatever's most expensive. He'll shoot me a message asking where I'm at, and for an hour I'll keep reassuring him that I'm, quote, still getting ready, end quote, or almost there, or stuck in traffic. One time I waited until a guy bought his first drink. Then I told him I was running a little late, but that he could go buy condoms and I'd be there soon. I waited until he came back and bought another drink to text him. OMG, if you're still at the store, can you buy some lube? See you in 20 minutes. He left again, came back, and ended up staying at the bar until it closed at 2 a.m. By the time a guy decides to leave, he'll be shit-faced and raging at the bartender about the stupid bitch who stood him up. I'll follow him as he walks to his car, wait for him to start it, and then stick him with my little needle to put him to sleep. I'll shove him into the passenger seat, use his face to unlock his phone, and then I'll look up his address and start driving. I think of it as a favor. He really shouldn't be driving at this point. Once in his driveway, I'll put him in the driver's seat and wait for him to wake up. If I was able to make an accurate dose, I hate it when guys lie about their height, it won't take long. But if I'm off by even a millimeter, I'll have to wait a while. He'll freak out a bit when he wakes up, grab the steering wheel and slam his foot on the brake like he's about to swerve into traffic. But once he calms down, he'll figure he just drove home and passed out. I'll follow him into the house. Oftentimes his wife will be awake by the time we get into the bedroom. If she isn't, I'll gently rub her shoulder or blow on her face to wake her up. As the man walks near the bed, I'll do something. Drop panties on the floor or call him with a super cheesy ringtone that I set up while he was asleep. Anything to make sure he gets caught. Once his wife is good and mad, either having stormed out of the house or kicked him to the couch, I'll make him kill himself. It's easier than you think. If I'm lucky, he lives in a 3rd or 4th floor apartment and has a balcony. I'll make a sound outside. When he goes to investigate, I'll push him off. Sometimes I'm creative. One time a guy decided to take a bath, so I waited until he fell asleep, then plugged in a coffee maker and threw it in. He screamed and lashed out for a while before going limp. Oftentimes while he's passed out, I'll pour a whole bottle of vodka down his throat. Sometimes I hang around to watch the wife's reaction. You'd be shocked. Sometimes she screams and cries and calls the police. She bangs on his chest and tries to breathe life back into him. Other times she'll shout obscenities at his body, telling him she's glad that he's dead. Most often it's a shocked gasp or a cut-off scream. Then a smile. She'll take a deep breath, whisper something like, "Thank you," and then call the police. She'll force some sobs on the phone, but she won't start the real waterworks until the flashing lights are outside. By the time the first cop enters the house, she'll be snotty and red-faced, a terrified wife who just found the love of her life dead. I don't know what happens after that, but I imagine most of them tell the full story. She found out he was cheating, they got into a fight, and next thing you know, she found him dead. I assume there's usually some suspicion, but I doubt these wives ever get charged. There can't be any evidence. After all, they're innocent. And the person who did the killing doesn't exist. Not completely. But I'm not here to tell you about the 186 guys who didn't meet me. I'm here to tell you about the one who did. It was shaping up to be a normal night. I was laying in bed and listening to music as I texted an especially daring one. We hadn't even moved to Snapchat yet and he was already telling me all the things he wanted to do to me. I usually make the guys wait a few days to get their hopes up, give them a chance to change their minds, but I was bored. It had been 3 days since my last date and I didn't feel like waiting any longer. Plus, this guy reminded me of someone. He was a little overweight and he stared at me through my phone screen like he thought I owed him something. His eyes were narrow and his chin was raised high as he looked down at the camera. I couldn't help but laugh as I thought about him walking around his room setting up the perfect angle. We met up less than 3 hours after matching. He sat only 2 spots away from me, and he didn't drink any alcohol as he waited for his date to arrive. Instead, he played Snake on his phone and drank Diet Coke for over 2 hours before heading back to his car. I decided not to drug him. He hadn't drunk a lick of alcohol, so it wasn't like he was going to believe he passed out and miraculously sleep drove his way home. Besides, he was probably the first guy in the history of the world to lie and say he was shorter than he actually was. On Tinder, he claimed to be 5'9". In person, he was at least 6'3" and 50 pounds heavier than I anticipated. I probably packed enough to knock him out for 15 minutes max. We pulled into his driveway, and I followed him through the front door. We went to the bathroom as I explored the house. It was all very sanitary. There were 2 bedrooms, but no sign of anyone else. The beds were made, but there were no pictures on the walls, no books, no toys. The carpet was freshly vacuumed and the counters were without a crumb. There was a bowl of fake fruit on the kitchen table. The pantry was bare, except for granola bars and a box of Cheerios. The fridge held milk, eggs, and butter, but smelled faintly of chemicals. When I heard the toilet flush, I gently closed the fridge. I waited for the sound of the sink, but then he was walking into the kitchen. Of course, he didn't wash his fucking hands. I wasn't sure if he actually had a wife or not. There was no ring on his finger, but that's par for the course when someone's going out to cheat. The master bedroom had enough pillows, but the closet was empty except for khakis and collared shirts. I was trying to decide if I should kill him or just leave when the most shocking thing possible happened.
You know, you don't look at all like your pictures.
He fucking spoke to me. Had I accidentally woken too soon? But no. I could see through my arms. My veins were absent. My feet were floating just an inch above the ground. My breath caught in my throat. My body went cold. For the first time since the accident, I was scared? Excited? I stayed completely still. He was looking right at me, but of course he couldn't see me. He wasn't talking to me. That was impossible.
You gonna answer me?
I turned and made a run through the wall, but then something smacked into my back and I fell. I tried to get up and move, but I was stuck on that kitchen floor like a fly in honey. I pulled and pulled, but couldn't move an inch. I laid face down as he poured something on me. It burned like scalding rocks. From the corner of my eye, I could see flakes falling to the floor and forming a mound. Specks of salt mixed with something red. He poured pounds and pounds worth until I thought I was going to melt through the floor. By the time he stopped, I felt not only burned and crushed, but incredibly claustrophobic. I remember when I was a kid and my brother would push me into the crack between his bed and the wall. There's a sense of doom and the feeling of being slowly crushed. The crushing got closer and closer, heavier and heavier, until my skin and muscle and fat were pushing down on my bones and my intestines. Any moment, my insides would squish like sponges, only to release torrents of blood as my bones split like twigs. I felt so horrifically human. I thought I was going to pass on again, somewhere new, but then he grabbed me. Something else that should have been impossible. He pulled me with one hand like I was a child. We went out the back door. I bit and kicked and screamed, but it was no use. I was weak from the poison, and he was too strong. He laughed.
Guess there is still a human in there after all.
We entered the garage, which was completely empty except for a rectangular glass cage, an office chair, a ladder, and a pantry cabinet. He opened the glass door and threw me inside. It took a moment for the pain to stop, then I was the one laughing. Men are so fucking dumb. It's a wonder they don't see it tatted on their foreheads when they look in the mirror. He thought he could just throw me in a glass cage and that would be the end of it. He took a seat and stared at me like this was some sort of exhibit. We aren't at the zoo. He smirked at me as I walked toward him. The idiot didn't think to check my pocket. My syringe was practically buzzing, a magnet for my hand that twitched with fury. I was 2 steps away from him when I smacked into the glass. I must have looked like a stupid puppy trying to chase a squirrel in the backyard. I tried again, more focused, slower, but I couldn't get through it. Somehow it was ghost-proof.
"You ready to talk?"
He asked. How? He sat down and laughed.
"I have to say, even for me, this is fucking amazing. I mean, unbelievable. I'm probably the first person to ever have done this. I captured a real motherfucking ghost."
What do you want? How did you find me? How did you do this?
He tilted his head to the side and looked up as if imagining something far away.
"This is all I ever wanted,"
he said.
"It's my life's work. No, my entire bloodline's work. I saw you for the first time at the bar, months ago. You came back again and again. Each time you followed a different man. It doesn't take a genius to put it together. You're a serial killer. You lure men to bars, follow them home, and kill them. You sick fuck. I thought you'd be harder to catch, have a little more spine. I didn't expect you to be so weak and nervous."
That's where I knew him from. He was a bartender at one of the places I frequented. I thought I'd caught him staring at me once, but of course not. He was looking at someone behind me, or zoning out. I hadn't realized he'd been planning my capture. He said he had this gift since he was young. It freaked his mom out, so he was sent to live with his grandma. There, she told him about her gift and her research, her books, spells, and rituals. She could sense ghosts faintly, and with the right materials, she could dispel them. She'd spent 30 years working as a pro bono exorcist. She'd invented a mix of salt, crushed glass, and iron fillings that could allow you to trap ghosts in a defined area, like a cage. It also burned the shit out of them. She had all kinds of tricks like this. By combining his more advanced powers with his grandma's tricks and spells, he thought he could work to dispel evil spirits all over the world.
"It was more of a hobby," he said, "until I realized what you were doing. You didn't think anyone would notice. A man complains to me about being catfish, then goes home and dies. Then the next day it happens again. You think just because you're dead you can do anything you want. You think the law doesn't apply to you. No. I'm the judge, jury, and executioner. And you're guilty."
So, what are you gonna do?
I asked.
Kill me?
I needed to buy time. I'd be able to change soon. I just needed a few more minutes. He laughed.
"I wish I knew. I really do. But you're gonna be the lucky girl who gets to find out."
He opened the pantry cabinet, and I saw that it was stocked full with more of those bags. I flinched at the thought of any more of it touching me. He grabbed 2 of them, and I prayed that he was able to walk forward and open the door. The syringe was burning a hole in my pocket. I had to bite my lip to stop from reaching for it. Instead of walking toward the door, he slung the bags like a strong man one after the other on top of the cage. They must have weighed at least 10 pounds each, and as they landed, they burst open slightly. A little bit of stuff fell through the tiny holes which were drilled all around the ceiling. Small pieces fell on me and burned like ashes from a fire. I screamed out so sharply that I thought the glass would shatter all around me. It didn't. He threw more and more bags on top of the cage. 5, then 10. Then I stopped counting. He leaned a ladder up against the cage and climbed on top of it. I looked all around. There had to be something I could do, some form of shelter. Even as a ghost, even in what could have been my last moment before I got sent back to that place, my psychology was so stupidly human. When it comes down to it, we all think of life like a movie or a video game. There's always a way out. God would never put us in a position where we're utterly screwed. And so, I believed that there was a way out. A way to win. I wasn't going to let him pour that stuff on me again. It simply couldn't happen. But I was wrong. He stood on the top of the cage and poured bag after bag on top of me. As it fell on me, my skin seared and smoke poured from my body. I ran and ran from one wall to the other, then in circles around the cage. It began to fill up the ground and the air all around me. I fell on top of it. My vision went black, but no, I hadn't passed out. My world was an endless void of pain. I was nothing but one big nerve being stabbed with a sword of fire. I wasn't sure if I was even in the cage. Had I left the world and gone to purgatory? Was that what this was? Was I going to be left forever in this dark, cold, burning place. But no. Vaguely I could hear him descending the ladder. As he did so, I felt the pain give way to a slight, pleasant heat. It started at my feet and worked its way up my body. I focused and pushed hard. Please, God, just let me do it one more time. It was as if I was on the beach in the middle of a cold night, but now the sun was slowly making its way through the clouds. I smiled faintly when I realized what had happened. I'd come to. I couldn't see, but the salt no longer burned. I was laying on the sand. I wriggled my fingers as I heard crunching on the ground beneath me. By the time he stood over me, I could see. Though my vision was blurry, I relaxed my body as he grabbed me by the hair. He flipped me on my back. I stayed completely still as he laughed and poured one more bag on me, directly on my head. It didn't hurt anymore, but it took everything I had to not cough or sneeze as the fine powder went down my nose and into my mouth. He picked me up and threw me over his shoulder. I opened my eyes. We were walking outside of the cage. I reached slowly toward the pocket of my jeans, but the bumpy walk made accuracy difficult. At one point I slapped him in the shoulder, but I stayed limp and he didn't react. Eventually, I got a hold of the needle. I slid it gently out. He must have noticed the much too controlled way my body was moving. Maybe he noticed that I was breathing. Just as I unsheathed my weapon, he dropped me off his back and ran forward. He turned and his eyes locked on my syringe.
What the hell?
He yelled. We were in the backyard, halfway through the garage and the house. He took a step toward the back door, then hesitated and looked back at me before turning back to the door and breaking out in a full sprint. The moment of hesitation was all I needed. I dove forward and caught his ankle. He fell and landed on his chin. Before he could do anything else, I stabbed my needle just above the back of his knee. I took my time killing him. After all, he'd almost killed me. I'm part ghost, part human, and I kill evil men for fun. I've been on 187 dates this year, but only one of them has met me. Things have only gotten crazier since my first encounter with a ghost hunter. I've learned a lot, and there's more of them than you might think. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to take them all down, one by one. Before I give my thoughts for this story, the author wanted me to make sure I credited him verbally. So thank you to CDBlotts on Reddit, u/CDBlotts, CDBlotts, for letting me read this story. It was pretty good. Honestly, I'm hoping that there's going to be some sequels here and we're going to get a series here, because that ending was, there's a lot of them. I'm going to hunt them down one by one. Very curious. There's the whole backstory for the ghost that we haven't heard at all. There's a lot of foreshadowing for where's that place. I'm assuming it's, the bad place, the devil's place, but yeah, who knows? Obviously something happened to this ghost in the past. I'm assuming she got cheated on in some way or another, considering, her MO here. So yeah, I think, I'm hoping to see more stories. This was pretty well written. I'm excited to see any more if the author writes them, and maybe they will let me read them. So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you CDBlotts for letting me read this. I'll see you all in the next Ego Volt Anima Vestra.